Good morning. This is Spirit Journey, and today is Sunday, January 10th, 2016. I've been up now for maybe an hour, and it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the kitchen, so bear with me. Yes, I was still listening to some programs regarding what they call the extraterrestrials and visitations, things like that, and how they may have what they call people who are mixed with these ETs that are living amongst us. It sounds very far-fetched, doesn't it? But I was thinking about it, and I said to myself, what if? And at what point did this occur in human history? I know that the Bible talks about in Genesis chapter 6, refers to, they don't use extraterrestrial, they use the term, I think it was, what was that? It'll probably come to me. Well, the sons, the sons of God and the daughters of man. That's how they worded it. But I think in the actual translation, one of the words might refer to them by another name, the sons of God, or the Nephilim. But either way, that why would, let's just go there. Let's say something like that happened. Why would they want to come here? One thing they say, they need genetics because they cannot live on this planet in their current genetic state, and so they mingle with the indigenous women, and they are able to have offspring. But so maybe some of the offspring, they would say that they had special abilities, you know. They were usually bigger, they were smarter, etc. Then I asked myself, okay, let's fast forward from the Bible, you know, the Old Testament to now in the 21st century. Okay, you had, let me go back a little bit further back, the time of Columbus. And I was taught in history that the slave trade, everything seemed to kind of center around Europeans wanting to go to Asia to get certain types of products. You know, I think it was silk, teas, things like that. But why would you, what's the logic? I mean, we love tea that much, you know? And then you have Columbus, who comes to the New World, as they call it, and all of a sudden, boom, he landed in what we know as the Caribbean, and he found people there, and Columbus, according to his logs, his ship logs, and they're in existence, what was in his ship's log, you know, it's like a journal. And he discusses in his journals that he was going to take these people out of their will and bring them back to Europe. And he made an arrangement with the Spanish crown that he was to get 10% of every transaction. So commerce, he was to get 10% and his ancestry, you know, his progeny. And I think that's such a bold statement. But yet, but you try to make sense out of all this. What we know, what I could remember in school, what they taught us was that it was large plantations. Like my family background is from the Caribbean, South Caribbean. And you could look on Google Maps and zoom in on the Caribbean, and you see masses and masses of plantations, masses of food. Okay, you have banana productions, large-scale bananas. You have sugarcane, of course, you know. And then in the U.S., in the Southeast, you had cotton. And also was told that you had tobacco. Okay, these are like crops, okay? And you said, why you need such a large scale? And again, the trying to put in the pieces of logic in all this. Here you have someone who says they love tea and they like silk, and they wanted a quick way to get there because there were middlemen, and these Europeans didn't want to pay the middlemen. And who were the middlemen? To my understanding, there might have been people of Islam. And then primarily, the Europeans were Catholic. And then eventually the Protestant movement developed also in Europe. But okay, so you have Islam, Christianity, and they're at odds of this commerce. And there's enough food and supplies for everybody. Okay, but so somehow the European is not interested in the tea and the silk, you know, but you go and spend all this money, or you have people finance your endeavors of trying to get to Asia for these products. But instead, somehow, you get to the Americas and the Caribbean primarily, and then you set up a shop. Even Columbus had several, I think 3 visits to the Americas, and I think it was his first visit. He did leave some men behind to do industry, and they were taking advantage of the indigenous people that was living there at the time, and it was a fight that occurred and everything. But here, you know, their intent did not seem very good, the European. And right away there was chaos developing. And then full-fledged kidnapping, primarily people from Africa, was forcibly removed from their homes and trekked overseas. It took months to get to the Americas, and they were forced to do labor, and it was to be generationally. And I'm thinking, well, from tea to silk to now sugar crop, sugar cane, mass quantities of sugar. Why? Why all this indulgence, all this quantity? It wasn't about hunger, you know. I'm thinking, you had farms in Europe. You had what they call the lords, the landlords, and then you had the what they may call serfs, or the peasantry of Europe, working the farms. But there's food, but now it's like a shifting of a type of commerce and an exaggeration of commerce. And what for? What was it needed for? And where the products was made was not where it was consumed. The tobacco, the cotton, and the sugar cane wasn't used for the what they call European colonials. It wasn't consumed by them. It was all shipped out. They only used what they needed, I guess, but it was shipped back to Europe. But Europeans don't even need that much food. So, where I'm going with all this. Now you have the ETs. And if they're here now, they're probably present then. I'm wondering whether this large production of supplies, it had to go somewhere, it had to be consumed by someone, and it was such a fervor for it. I'm wondering whether it was gathered and shipped somewhere off of this planet even, right? It had to go somewhere. And then I started thinking something else, like the people. You had many, many Africans that were being taken. Were all of us sent to the Americas? Were any of these people part of the so-called breeding plan for the ETs? This is wild, wild, theory. But you just wonder why. And then I'm noticing also the type of products. Sugar is very addictive. Okay? And then I understand in history that there were also wars, what they call the Opium Wars with China. Britain in particular, Britain and China, the city of Hong Kong. And there was, I don't fully understand, know the history with the opium trade back then. I think this was in the 1700s, the Opium Wars. I think it was the late 1700s. And in short, to my understanding, what happened, you had opium being grown, and Britain wanted to have a monopoly. And at one time, people of China, at least a region of China, were addicted to opium. And the European, Britain, wanted to exploit that. And a war occurred. China said, we don't want any more. We don't want you to send or do trade with opium. And they fought, and China lost the war, and Britain acquired Hong Kong. I think it was Hong Kong, and that they could trade freely with this opium and any other stuff. And now, fast forward now. Okay, that's opium. Okay, now maybe it's the same thing with the sugar. Okay, it's masses of sugar, and you have Britain again behind a lot of this sugar production, and of course other Western and Central Europeans as well. But with this, now who's going to consume it? Okay, and sugar affects your behavior. It rots out your teeth. The royal family had rotten teeth back in those days. They had bad teeth. George Washington, he had no teeth. It all corroded and turned their teeth black, because the sugar it makes your body very acidic, and makes your mouth acidic with the bacteria, and your teeth fall out. But it's a crave for sugar. Just like opium is addictive, and it's being forced on us. Sugar is in virtually every product that you consume, and any processed food, cereals, candies, okay, beverages. It's in there, and it affects your thinking. And then they could control your thinking. And isn't this what it's all about? Controlling your thinking? So again, you have these people, I believe these people who are behind the manufacturing of these products, the sugar, the cotton, and the drugs. It's all behind someone, you know. But who? I also ask myself about, okay, it's like I mentioned in a video that I did yesterday about symbols. And the three major symbols, the three major religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And how these symbols have power behind them. You know, at least some people believe that it actually has qualities in them that impart certain abilities if you know how to use it. And to use the symbols of those religions visually in your mind, and that it facilitates certain things to occur, such as getting in contact with these higher entities, so-called ETs or advanced souls, whatever what you want to call it. Now again, all these products, even tobacco is addictive. Well, what makes tobacco addictive is what they put in it. But still, the vehicle is the tobacco. And just like the opium is a substance that influences your being, you know. So I'm wondering whether these wars, you know, like every time they mention drug, like the drug wars, and it seems like the people who use that term, the drug war, the war on drugs, are the ones who are behind it. You know, the war on obesity, yet they're putting sugar in everything that affects your behavior. Okay? So there's something. Now, I'm trying to see if there's correlation, how these different unrelated events in history match up. So you have all this control, and you have people, and masses of people being exploited of their labor. And then you have a large production. So I'm wondering whether this is just an extension of this ET phenomenon, and that you have these beings from out of space or whatever, you know, dimensionals, whatever, who are coming into this dimension and forcing people or communicating with a selected few here on this planet, who then have power and control over the masses and forces large production scales of products, and then sending it somewhere else. So this is just food for thought. And again, I'm trying to put the dots together and try to make sense out of events that happen in history that seem illogical. You know, why the war on drugs? Why did we have slavery? You know, why did we need that? We didn't need the large production, but it's there. And then the type of product that was manufactured, that people were killing, mass killings for these products. So there's a reason for this, and it will eventually be found out what the whole cause is all about. So please feel free to, you know, comment below. Share this video with other people, especially people who know about history, world history, who are interested in the slave trade and the war on drugs and the African American and blacks worldwide and the indigenous peoples from all over the world. How we all fit in this picture, and how the world is being manipulated and controlled by the few. So it's not the majority that rule, it is the minority that actually rules. So again, please feel free to subscribe, and once again to give me the thumbs up. Peace to you guys. Bye bye. Hey guys, hi. This is a postscript. I was just talking about the drug wars, the opium wars of the past, the large-scale sugar production during slavery, and there's still a very large scale of sugar production. You have tobacco, and all these substances affects your thinking, your behavior, and why this preoccupation with these substances, and why such a large scale, and why these products have to be sent to some place. I was just thinking, okay, I did mention about the sugars and stuff like that, and opium, but again, marijuana and cocaine, those crops are also being produced, and again, who's producing it? And again, they're probably exploiting labor in South America. I remember seeing this one documentary, and they're using the indigenous people to do the cocaine, and it's slavery really didn't end. They just changed the form of it, and they kind of changed what the person looks like, but they're still being exploited, their labor, and I started saying, well, all those substances, they give you a lower vibrational state, and a lot of the what they call the New Age movement is about elevating our, how you say, your energy, or your frequency. So these substances dumb you down. So if you have a people who are manipulating things, they need to dumb you down through these substances so they can stay on top. Okay? So this is just something I just wanted to add to this, that this war is actually a war against your mind and body, and that they don't want you to ascend, and they don't want you to awaken from your matrix. Just like in the movie The Matrix, they were dumbed down, they were plugged in, and people are trying to fight to break out of the matrix. And I think a lot of these people that you see on the street that they look like they're gone mentally, they're trying to keep their mind, and unfortunately many of them do drugs, and I think it's really a war on your mind so that you do not ascend. I've been in certain areas in the United States, and I used to live in Hawaii, the island of Maui in specific, and I noticed that, like, there even, I mean, the people are very nice there, but the mass population that lives there, outside of white people, are all from Asia, and they intermix with each other. So you have Filipinos, Chinese, you do have Japanese, and you have the indigenous population that was there first. But I noticed, like, the educational system there is lacking, and even though it's a large Asian population, but there in the state of Hawaii, they don't really want to, they dumb them down educationally wise. But like, if there's the same type of population, people from Japan, China, Philippines, if they come to, let's say, the west coast of the United States or the east coast, that They do well in school, they high academics, they go for higher learning. But in Hawaii, they don't want them to have higher learning. So some things are geographical. And again, you have a sugarcane production there. See again, dumb the people down. Where the sugarcane is, the people who harvest them dumb them down and dumb down the population, you know. So, you know, be aware of what you eat. Stay away from the sugars. Stay away from these tobacco, especially one that's highly processed, you know, that they put those rat poison in it. Stay away from that. Stay away from cocaine and crack. Stay away from opium. Stay away from these drugs. Stay away from that sugar. Because it's being used to lower your energy levels, your so-called vibrational levels, your psychic abilities, to look into the spirit realm. And so you can see behind the scene. See, these people who are higher up, I speculate, I'm guessing that they are able to see behind the scene because they're part of it. And they're being communicated. And one of these videos that I was watching yesterday, they talked about what they call the black ops. And that you have people in the U.S. government who knows about what they call ETs, and that they have an arrangement. And so these black ops, what are funding the black ops, what they call black ops? These illegal drugs that I just mentioned about. The opium, the cocaine, the crack, all these things. Wow. See, slowly the pieces are coming together. It's amazing, isn't it? It's a war, and they're warring against you. Let's get more in tune with our spirit selves. I know I have to. I'm really new at this. It doesn't make sense, all this stuff. But everything does make sense once all the pieces come together, you know. So please let your friends know, you know, share them this video, and definitely comment below, because the more of us who are in communication with each other, who share their experiences, their knowledge on subjects, you know, each one teach one. And I'm a student, and I'm just trying to make sense out of my world that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So take care, guys. This is Spirit Journey. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Spirit Journey. I have another thought here regarding ETs and the like. With the different programs that I was watching on YouTube, they show different types of ETs and the so-called breeding program. You know, but you know what I'm thinking about now is, you know, what they showed sketchings of what they said some of the people who saw them, what they looked like, some of the ETs and some of the hybrids, alien hybrids as they call them. I never saw one black person. I think one of them might have been a little brown, but black people. You never see ETs that look like black people. They have things what they call the grays, and then they have some that look what they call the Nordics or the blondes, you know, who look something like, you know, Northern Europeans, but different. But you never see ETs that look like black people. So why am I mentioning this, you know? Well, Remember earlier I mentioned about the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, bringing people from West Africa along the coast and then forcibly removing them on ships to the Americas to work in plantations, to work in the minefields, etc. Now, the excuse was, well, that these people were inferior, at least as time went on within the slave trade, that Europeans started to dehumanize these people from Africa and said, well, they can do it because they're inferior. And then they talk about the Bible, that we're allegedly cursed from the time of in Genesis. So I started thinking that here you have a group of people, and genetics show that the African is the prototype, is the original, in quotes, primitive, but primitive just means first, the original. That black people are the original people on this planet. And so then you have a people who are coming into these lands, and doing things to these original people. And every time when this outside group comes and meets these original peoples, what happens? Oppression, genocide, right? And it's still going on. And you do have a lot of mixing. But still, the plight of these people are being, marginalized. And why? Well, again, I mentioned earlier about the ETs, and that you never see any black ETs. You see Caucasian, white-skinned aliens, but never black. And if the African and genetics prove that every ethnic group, every racial group, DNA matches the African, not opposite. Every group comes and stems from the African. How did we change? How did these people change? Well, maybe this is where the ET comes in, and that they mix with these people, mix with the indigenous people, and they talk about this in Genesis chapter 6, as I mentioned in the first part. Well, maybe all these people that you see, these people that are doing the kidnapping in those days, maybe these are people that are in contact with these ETs or spirit beings, whatever what you want to call them, and instructing them to do these things and making them think that, hey, I'm superior to you because I'm of this heritage. And as we look in the Bible, you have people who form the Bible as we know it, or form the Quran, and this is an Abrahamic system. And their scriptures talks about beings or some type of spirit entity communicating with them and giving them the edge over the indigenous population. Just look at the people of Canaan. They were an agriculturally advanced group. They talk about the size of the grapes that they had there and how big they were. But here, an outside group, an Abrahamite, conquered and took over. And their Bible, I call the Bible, and the other religious major, scriptures, these are like operating systems to control the way you think. It's telling you how to think. And you notice that the people who wrote these books, or at least practice what's in the book, believe that they are superior and everybody outside of this group are inferior, and that you can control them, you can take their land, you can take their bodies, you could enslave them, right? So you have Columbus, who's an Abrahamite, and in his captain's log, he talks about him taking the indigenous people that were in the Caribbean and shipped some of them with him on his first voyage back. And then the slave trade with the indigenous people of Africa, right? So there's a connection again, that maybe all these people, again, you don't see black people stealing black people and put, to the extent how Europeans and Semitic races of the Middle East were. Again, they all tied in with that Bible and have a privilege over all the other groups on this planet, historically. So, again, I don't want to imply that everyone of this particular group, Semitic group or European group, are evil. Not at all. I'm just talking about history and the events that happened in history and what happened to people who were in contact with those people in charge who are in these groups. See, everything is connected. So again, this is just something that I think is a correlation that fits in the picture, and it explains why we look different from each other and where the outsiders come from, how they got on this planet, and that they have an agenda against the indigenous population, which I am a part of, which you are a part of too. So each one teach one. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.